What's up? Welcome in on this Friday. We made it to the end of the freaking week, and we have a playoff, big time, big event weekend ahead of us. Plenty of stuff to go over. Ironically, on WrestleMania weekend, we get Draymond Green, Dylan Brooks, Scott Foster to start us off on Friday nights. There'll be SmackDowns all over the western half of the United States, if you're picking up what I'm putting down there. Plenty of stuff to go through today. As I said, feel free to comment along if you're watching along. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. You've heard us say it. Sign up for the newsletter. MikeAranaShow.com/links comes out every Tuesday. Let you know what's going on with the show, what's coming up for the show. Some betting nuggets here and there, a couple of the stories that you might have missed during the week, plenty of stuff to talk about there always. Again, that comes out on Tuesday mornings, and it's free. Who in the hell doesn't like something that is free? If it's free, I'll take 3. That was one of the best pieces of advice on this struggling to speak English Friday here that I received when I was coming up through radio school way back in the day. You can make your jokes there, but yeah, I did. I was on the advanced plan. We can get into that a little bit later. Hopefully never, but I basically got my doctorate when I was only supposed to be there for a brief amount of time. But it is Friday on the show, and you know what we do because, hey, we were not put on this earth to work, and then die, and then leave it for everybody else. We were here to get to weekends like this. This is one of those days where you duck out a little early. Maybe you put the show on in your headphones. You got to take a call, got to run out. It's a big weekend, man. You should be going to the grocery store tonight. Get all your snacks. Get all your beverages of choice. Get all your however you go about making your wagers for the weekend, get them together, and when you get home tonight, just celebrate it because we made it to another Friday ahead of another fascinating weekend in sports. That's for all of you out there. We've had an interesting week on the show. We've had plenty of feedback on the show. We've had plenty of comments on the show. Might be one of our most commented on weeks on the show, so we appreciate everybody out there for that. Again, if you've got a question to ask said panel, which is usually an actual panel. Today it's just me. And we change topic. We'll see it. We'll get to it before the show is over. That's something we've started doing this week. We will continue to do that. So we appreciate the feedback and the comments as we go through. Day baseball going on right now at Wrigley. The Chicago Cubs and the New York Mets. The Cubs have an early lead in the bottom of the first. So if you went Nerfy today, not the wisest choice. And if you went Nerfy today, did you check the weather report? Because the wind is blowing out like a mother to left field at Wrigley today. Doesn't mean that it's going to work any good for me. I don't know about you guys out there, but I have had miserable luck betting home runs to start this season. And we're coming off of, I'm fascinated to see the numbers here at the end of the week. But we're coming off of one of the better offensive weeks that we've seen in a long time. And I can't pick a home run hitter to save my freaking life. So hopefully tonight changes that. I don't know. Hopefully it's been better for you. And speaking of the wind at... you can't make this stuff up, folks. Mo Bala. Moises Ballesteros with a 3-run Oppo taco. It is now 4-0 Chicago in the top of the first. So I just went through that whole spiel to tell you that I've had crappy luck picking home run hitters to start the year. I just got one. So kudos to me. That means anything that I have Ballesteros on a ticket with, the rest of the guys will look like that meme that's been floating around on X for the last couple of days of this is what my team looks like, or the players I bet on to hit home runs looks like. I will give you our dollar dingers play. I'm actually going to do that right now because we're talking about home runs and chicks dig the long ball. So there's the play for today. We kind of mentioned it yesterday, but obviously we're doing it a day forward. So give us a little credit here for this, okay? We started this a couple years ago. We've gotten 2 of the 3 several times. The whole point of this is not because we're sitting here trying to tell you, oh, parlays are the way to go, because they are definitely not. And if you've been watching the show long enough, you've heard that from Jared Smith. You've heard that from Bill Krackenberger. You've heard us say one of our signature lines on this show is play them straight, play them together. That's up to you. So those of you that are new to the show, welcome. How we do dollar dingers, pretty damn simple. It's a $4 investment. We do it every Friday for sure. We do, once we get into the summer, Memorial Day, 4th of July, we drop out some other ones in there, but every Friday we will have a dollar dinger play, absolutely, for sure, because who doesn't want to start their weekend with a couple extra dollars? How it works, we all pick a guy. We do keep records. This is only the second week we've done it. We missed it last week, just because I forgot that it was on our show rundown last week. You bet $1 on each guy. You bet $1 on all 3 of them together. This particular one on the particular site that you guys can probably figure out where I made the wager this morning was boosted a little bit, I think 25%. So your $1 today on Matt Olson, Joe Adell going against the knuckleballer for the Padres, Matt Waldron tonight, and Munetaka Murakami, I Have Power at Coors Field of California. That's one of our favorite sound bites. I would play it, but it doesn't play right. Against Aaron Savali tonight. So Olson against Ty Walker, Joe Adell against Matt Waldron, and Munetaka Murakami at Coors Field of California against Aaron Savali and the Western Sacramento Nomads. So that's our play for today. I will post that on our social channels as well. You got a little bit of time to make it. As you can see, those times are... damn, that's hard to see for me from back here. Those times are in West Coast times there, so... the early game that you'd need to jump on first if you want to ride with us tonight. It's usually a good ride. Mr. Friday Night Joe Adell, first time TJ's gotten to use him this year. So there we go. Olson, Adell, and Murakami. Let's see if that translates to success for us tonight on the diamond. Again, we'll post that on our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Plenty of stuff this weekend throughout the social channels. Obviously, the big news of the weekend is the NBA playoffs beginning on Saturday, as well as the Stanley Cup playoffs. As we know, we're expecting an exciting yet dumbass way of the first round of the NHL playoffs that'll basically see the Central Division have one team left standing, even though they were the 3 clearly best teams, with the exception of a couple of teams in the Atlantic Division for the whole year. 2 of those 3 teams will be out before we get to the conference finals, because that makes a lot of sense. I'm fascinated by the bracket. We'll go over it here in a little bit. TJ and I made our Stanley Cup Finals predictions yesterday. TJ's still a little choked up about mine. I went with Vegas and Montreal. I think that Montreal team is very much slept on as we walk into the playoffs here, and that is a dangerous hockey team. And I think they got swallowed up, as I said the other day. I think they got swallowed up a little bit with the success of the Sabres, rightfully so. I think they got swallowed up a little bit this year by the start-to-finish run that the Lightning had, which was very, very good. That Montreal team is no team to sleep on, man. Montreal-Buffalo in the next round, if it were to break itself out to that, I think would be fascinating. But we know the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is always fascinating because of the dumbass way that they do it. So it is what it is. We can sit here and complain about it. Everybody's posting the 1-16s, how it would work, taking their dumps on the Pacific Division. Listen, as long as Gary Bettman is standing in the commissioner's office for the NHL, it doesn't sound like this playoff format will change. I would like to see, okay, if you want to keep your first round exciting, cool. One thing I wouldn't hate was a little reseeding after the first round. You want to leave your first round exciting. I get the concept behind it, especially when you compare it to the NBA's first round. I can live with it, but I think, again, when I'm looking at both of the teams in the 2 of the 3 teams in the Central that have been dominant all year, both of them won't make it. 2 of the 3 of them won't make it out of the next round, which is the second round of the playoffs. That's a problem to me. Wouldn't mind seeing a little reseeding, reshuffling, but as far as we know, it's not going to change. Baseball tonight, it's a big weekend in baseball early in the season. And we know, we've talked about this a lot, and you know this. It's not breaking news to anybody out there, but we know the baseball season really doesn't show us who's who and who's about it until Memorial Day. That's where you first see who a real contender is and who's not. Do the Yankees kind of right their offensive struggles and they're getting Rodon and they're getting Garrett Cole back eventually here? Will that be by Memorial Day? I don't know. They're going to begin rehab starts here soon. But right now it's not the Yankees pitching that's been terrible. They haven't been great over the last couple of days. You can thank Mike Trout for that. I'm sure Yankee fans are happy to see Mike Trout leave. I know Yankee fans are pipe dreaming of Mike Trout wearing pinstripes and bringing him back to the closest place that's originally home for him. I always kind of thought if Trout was ever going to leave the Angels, he'd end up in Philadelphia, but that's just me. The Yankees have the Royals this weekend. This is a Royals team, and we dropped the stat about Bobby Witt the other day. Entering this week of play, Bobby Witt had reached base safely 31 times at the conclusion of Monday's game. He has scored one time. And that was at the conclusion of Monday's game. So this is a Royals team at 7-12 that I have high expectations for. And offensively, they've just been abysmal. So, you can go to the headline series this weekend for sure. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Cleveland's another big one early as far as the scope of the very tightly contested American League goes. Mac mentioned this the other day. I think this is going to be a fun series, and it's getting some Apple TV love tonight. But Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh, the 11-8 Pittsburgh Pirates, off to a really good start. Don't think that's very surprising to a lot of people. It's how do they handle it when we get close to it and it comes time to, hey, maybe make a decision to go out and get somebody that can help us. That's where we'll see if the Pittsburgh Pirates are actually for real this year. Because I think offensively, they've got a good enough team to continue what they're doing. Milwaukee and Miami. Miami's cooled off a little bit, but that'll be an interesting series. Detroit and Boston, two teams that have been absolutely dreadful out of the gates here. They also get some Apple TV love tonight. That series gets going in Boston tonight in Game 1 there. We've also got San Diego and LA. Part of our Dollar Dingers play. Texas and Seattle. Early big matchup out in the AL West there. Houston at 8-12. Texas at 10-9. Seattle at 8-12. The Athletics, the Nomads, at 10-9. I'm interested to see that series with the White Sox and the A's this weekend. There's a lot of good series this weekend, even if you look a little bit past the general records of everything as we sit everybody about 20 games into their season right now. Toronto and Arizona is another interesting series. The Jays have really looked like a team that has a World Series hangover so far. So it is what it is. Other important baseball news, and this is something that we've talked about for quite some time, and it's held one particular team kind of hostage with the situation, and that's the San Diego Padres ownership situation. Well, we found out today that the Padres are on the verge of being sold for a record price of $3.9 billion to Jose Feliciano, co-owner of the Chelsea Football Club, and his wife, Kwanzaa Jones. A source confirmed to ESPN on Friday. The sale price easily tops the previous record of $2.4 billion for an MLB franchise set by Steve Cohen when he purchased the Mets in 2020. Before being finalized, as per usual, the sale has to be approved by 75% of Major League Baseball's owners, with the next owners' meeting scheduled for June. Man, it's really hard as an owner to sit here and cry poor when the Padres just got sold for $3.9 billion, more than the Mets. So forward your brain to thinking, what are the Cubs worth? What are the Yankees worth? What are the Phillies worth? What are the Dodgers worth? And as we play a season that could lead us to not knowing when we would see the next season, I do believe in the concept of a floor and a cap. More of a floor than a cap, but it's really hard to take the owner's side when they're crying poor, and we're seeing the Padres sell for $3.9 billion. Kind of puts things in perspective. We are a long way away from anything that resembles labor peace in baseball. And if you want somebody to blame, I guess the hot topic that I've seen floating around the last couple of days, because everybody wants to rehash this, was Kyle Tucker's contract with the Dodgers. Are there some unfair advantages, if you will, to how the Dodgers make their money? I don't think anybody with a straight face could sit here and say, no, there's not. Because there are. But I don't fully subscribe to that, because at the same time, and we've talked about this a lot, what do the Dodgers do better than anybody in baseball right now? Develop young players. If you need to have any further documentation, for lack of a better word, of Dodgers developing players, I give you Andy Pages, who still leads Major League Baseball and is still over 400 on his batting average at 409. The next closest guy to him average-wise, Yandy Diaz and CJ Abrams at 371. Chandler Simpson of the Rays also at 348. Xavier Edwards of Miami at 338. Has anybody really put any stock into what's going on, speaking of the Padres, with Mason Miller? Because here's a dude who can't be hit right now. When the next time he doesn't strike out the side, you're going to go, oh, maybe he's slipping a little bit. Mason Miller is 16-1 to win the National League Cy Young. And I don't remember the number he was at the beginning of the year, but I'm going to feel safe in saying that I want to say he was somewhere north of 55-1, and that might be being conservative. He is now 16-1 to win the National League Cy Young Award. He's a closer, folks. He's a closer with 6 saves. But let's look at his regular season. He's pitched 9 1/3 innings total. He's allowed 1 hit, no runs, no earned, 1 walk, and 23 strikeouts in 9 1/3 innings pitched for a Padres team that both of my compadres on the show don't have any faith in, and I think would actually has a chance to win the West this year. It's got to be perfect. They've got to stay healthy. This ownership thing has to go through and be smooth, so in June they can figure out which top prospects to trade away and do what they've been doing. Because you can't, outside of the direct result, which is winning a World Series, you can't argue with a trade for Mason Miller when you see what Mason Miller is doing for what they gave up for him. But that's not sustainable over the long haul either. Well, now that the Padres might actually have some control and a direction, we'll see how that changes. And you know, people trying to do their digging right now, and the number one thing that I've seen so far today since this was announced is a lot of people going, well, it's private equity money, and that's never a good thing in sports, and I would venture to agree with that statement in general. But here's the thing. Feliciano is not afraid to spend money. He just doesn't necessarily have the right people involved with his FC, making the right decisions on how to spend money. Those are the 2 knocks that I've heard so far on Jose Feliciano. How that translates to the Padres, who knows? Joe Lacob's group, the owner of the Warriors, now he can go back to focusing on his other mess, the Warriors, who I will have some thoughts on before we get out of here tonight. They're in action tonight against the Suns in the second do-or-die game tonight on Amazon Prime to make the actual playoffs. But Joe Lacob was another one of the people. There was multiple bids on the Padres, and you got a great ballpark. You've got a great fan base there. And despite everything that's been going on since the unfortunate passing of Peter Seidler, this team has managed to stay afloat. And they've conducted business as usual. Now, the payoff for A.J. Preller is actually getting this team through into a World Series, which he hasn't been able to do yet. But when you look at top to bottom on this team and how they're playing right now, and you've got a guy who is untouchable on the backside of that, with one of the cooler entrances in all of baseball, and Mason Miller, That's a dangerous team going into the postseason. They've got some questions as far as you know, their starting pitching and if it can hold up and whatnot. But we've seen this team over the last, 7 days have 3 or 4 ridiculous walk-offs, including one from the other night, where I don't know how Don Orsillo is going to make it through a whole season if the Padres keep playing like this. His call the other night when they were down 6 to the Mariners and ended up coming back to win. Don Orsillo, man, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. They keep this up, Donnie O might be on the shelf for a little bit this year, because these walk-offs and the start of the year for the Padres have been absolutely exciting. 4-3 right now from Wrigley in the bottom of the second inning. This one's going to be a fun one. Kodai Senga on the mound for the Mets. Chicago is up in the bottom of the second, 1 out right now. So it looks like a fun day game at Wrigley. And there's not many times you go to Wrigley for a day game that it's not fun. Edward Cabrera on the bump today for the Cubbies. So big weekend in baseball. Oh, the NBA. Where do we start with the NBA? Well, we've talked about this a lot. Obviously, we've talked about tanking a lot. I'm not going down that road. We've beaten that dead horse until Adam Silver finds a way to combat it. We're going to deal with the same nonsense that we are. My stance on the play-in tournament still the same, despite 3 of the 4 games that we've seen so far being really good. Hopefully, we get 2 more good games tonight. I don't have much faith in the first game being very good, because that Orlando team is smoke and mirrors, defensively impotent, and Charlotte's had the upper hand with them all year. Now, for Charlotte, it's a young team. Can they get the job done tonight with what's on the line for them and get that date with Detroit that they so want? I think that series would be fascinating. We talked about it with Portland going against San Antonio. That series just got way more interesting to me because of the play of Denny Avia. And we know with the Spurs, while they've got a well-rounded team, again, we were 5 points away from them having 8 guys in double figures this year. This is new territory for the Spurs. And this was brought up yesterday. David Lloyd was hosting SportsCenter, and I can't remember the guy who did the piece on it, but I'm pretty sure we've shared it on our X account. And I forgot about this. And it's a great way for those of you that are kind of sour on the NBA to kind of handicap yourself through the postseason here. It's the 2-1-1 theory. Your best player wins you 2 games out of the 4 you need in a 7-game series. Your second best player wins you a game that you need out of the 4 you need to win a 7-game series. And then one of your role players has to play out of his mind one night. And that's typically, if you look back at it, over the last couple of years specifically, that's particularly how it's been done. Nico Horner has just left the building in Chicago. It is 6-3 Cubs, bottom of the second. So if you're an over better in that game, you're already having a great time. But the 2-1-1 theory, and you look at a lot of these first-round matchups that I'm going to get to here in just a second, you're going to see that play itself out. Well, for San Antonio, they could be the wild card unicorn dynamic in that theory, because obviously Wemby can win games by himself for you. But then you've got that trio, and I think this is what makes the Spurs so dangerous. You've got the trio of Castle and Fox and Vassell, or, we can go up and down the list. There's plenty of guys that we can put in that 4th spot. So when we're looking for a role player to step up and have a big game, a Harrison Barnes kind of comes to mind. Vassell's been really good for them this year. Castle and Harper. That was the other one that was slipping my mind. Castle, Harper, and Fox. I mean, I'm fascinated to see the Spurs team in the postseason. What I'm not fascinated or thrilled by is, and we've talked about this a lot, and I know this is a point of contention for Vegas Max specifically, but if you missed it yesterday, that is Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic. Not telling you anything you don't know there, but they are now award eligible based on an appeal that was denied for Anthony Edwards. Sounds confusing. Don't worry about it. I got you here. So Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic both fell below the 65 game threshold to be eligible for all NBA, MVP, and whatnot. The NBA's collective bargaining agreement, and most of us are finding this out for the first time in the last 24 hours, which is not a good look for the NBA going into the postseason one bit whatsoever. The NBA's collective bargaining agreement includes an extraordinary circumstances clause that a player can use to petition to make the ballot if he falls short of the 65 game minimum. Quote, the NBA and NBPA agreed that taking into account the totality of the circumstances for Cunningham and Doncic, each player qualified for awards, the league and union said in a joint statement. Doncic played 64 qualified games, which is 20 minutes or more, during the regular season, but he missed 2 games in December due to traveling for the birth of his child abroad. Cade Cunningham played in 63 qualified games, but he missed 12 after suffering a collapsed lung in mid-March. He appeared in a 64th game, but only logged 5 minutes, so that doesn't count for eligibility. Rather than those cases going to an arbitrator, both the NBA and NBPA agreed to waive the rule for both players. Well, did we not just open Pandora's box in the NBA? We know the 65 game rule is asinine. It's idiotic. It was designed to stop teams from resting players. Well, I don't really think that that's worked out very well. And now we have this threshold, which could have made the MVP race really interesting this year. Out of default, it could have went to Victor Wembanyama if SGA would have not qualified for the games. But now we're agreeing to special circumstances clauses? And how is one case any different than the other? Well, Anthony Edwards. He played in 60 games this season. The arbitrator denied Edwards' case, however, and he will not be eligible for end-of-the-season awards. Anthony and I appreciate the PA appealing his case, his business manager said. For me personally, I'm a bit confused at the clemency for Cade, who missed some time for something that happened on the court, and not Ant, who missed time for an infection, but ultimately, Ant isn't tripping over it at all. Timberwolves coach Chris Finch, noting that Edwards doesn't get held out to rest, was not pleased about the decision and said he would like an explanation, going on to say, I'm not sure why we have a rule if we have an appeal process that is overturned in 2/3 of the cases that were held before. Feels like more of a suggestion than a rule. What about guys like Devin Booker? I mean, we're going to say here special circumstances, but special circumstances are to be understood in the eye of said arbitrator or whoever's looking this over. Well, why do you care about Devin Booker, Mike? Well, Devin Booker played in 64 games. 26 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 33 minutes a night. You mean to tell me that you think the Phoenix Suns would be in the position that they're in right now without Devin Booker? And I don't know if he made an appeal. But, I mean, if we're going to go case by case on special circumstances, but we don't have a clear definition of what special circumstances are, then what are they? Because if Ant had an infection and missed time, but that wasn't okay. Cade had a collapsed lung that happened during a game and missed time, but that was okay. The birth of the child thing, do you want to talk about an even more gray area there? This is not a good look. It is absolutely not a good look. Because how do you look at Devin Booker and tell me he's not third team All-NBA? If not better, I don't know. I don't get into the All-NBA teams and staggering that because, again, I think that's just as much of a popularity contest as an MVP vote is. That's why I stay off the MVP market. Unless I see some grave thing, like at the end of last year, when Stafford played that bad Monday night game and he dropped all the way back to 3.5 to 1. I jumped on that because I thought it was foolish to drop him from the favorite to a distant second after one game. But for the most part, when I dabble into MVP markets, I do it at the beginning of the year. For example, this year I had a bet on Victor Wembanyama to be the most improved player in the league. I had a bet on Victor Wembanyama to be the MVP of the league, and I had a bet on him to be the defensive player of the league of the year. And with these 65 game rules, hell, I could have defaulted my way into at least 2 of the 3 on a sweep there. This is a bad look, man. And I had to like double check and triple check when this came out yesterday that I was reading this right, because I went, oh boy, did we just open up something we don't want to. Now, I don't know the eligibility timetable for the whole 65 game thing to be renegotiated. I don't have it in front of me, no. But I would venture to guess here that this is going to become an even bigger issue, especially because we just made 2 special exemptions for Cade Cunningham and for Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, who, depending on who you're talking to and listening to right now, might not play in the first round. That makes that Rockets-Lakers series more interesting than I thought it was going to be, because we're literally entirely looking at Durant and LeBron and who's got the healthiest supporting cast possible to go forward there. Sounds like Austin Reeves is going to play, and from what it sounds like, from the type of injury that Luka has, if he comes back too early and he re-aggravates the injury, and this is what I got from the sports doc on X yesterday, he could be out for the whole postseason. That's a hell of a gamble to take if you're the Lakers. Are you good enough to beat the Rockets without Luka? And the timing of when you bring Luka back. You need an example? See Warriors Steph Curry last year against Minnesota. It's fascinating. I think it's going to be incredibly fascinating to see how the Lakers handle it. But we have a bracket. You can say what you want about it. TJ's favorite series, Cleveland and Toronto up there. Mac is on the Knicks and the Hawks. He thinks the Hawks are going to give the Knicks all they can handle. And that if the Knicks have one eye on a matchup with Boston, who I think is going to sweep the Sixers, if they have one eye on a matchup with Boston in that second round, he's advising them to err on the side of caution, because he really does believe that Atlanta, a team that he thought, and he admitted this, he thought they were all smoke and mirrors when they went on their run. He's warmed up to the Hawks a lot. When I look at that, and we kind of talked about this the other day, San Antonio, Portland, I could see that series being 4 or 5 games, but every one of them's a tightly contested game. I think Denver has no problem with Minnesota, even though that's not the best matchup if you want to look at it from a nuts and bolts standpoint. It is the trilogy and their run against each other. I just don't believe this Minnesota team's all of a sudden going to flip a switch that they haven't been able to find all year. Just talked about Lakers and Rockets, and whoever wins tonight's game between Phoenix and Golden State, and I'll get to that here in a second, is literally just a sacrificial lamb to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, thanks to the Clippers, might end up with a top 5 pick. God forbid they ended up with the number 1 pick. I can hear the conspiracy theorists and the crybabies from here on that one. But whoever gets to the Thunder is a sacrificial lamb. They're lucky if they get a game. So I just don't see a whole lot up there that's fascinating to me in the first round. Hornets, Pistons would be. There's some bad blood there. I do think that the Portland-San Antonio series will be good, even though it's not going to look like it was competitive if you just look at the final score of the series. On an upset there, I'm not buying the Hawks thing one bit whatsoever. I would say the Raptors over the Cavs. That'd be the only one I could go, that's clear upset potential right there. But it's a Raptors team, you don't know what you're going to get every day. But thankfully for them, they're playing a Cleveland team that you don't know what you're going to get every day. And you know James Harden's on the Cavs now. James Harden doesn't win at this time of the year, so I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Cavaliers. But I don't also think if Toronto was to beat Cleveland, it would be some monumental upset of epic proportions. I just think those are two average basketball teams. I think we're looking at Denver and Detroit, which would be fascinating to me. I think there's a lot of good combos that we can have there. Who knows? But I tell you right now, it's a terrible look going into the playoffs to have amended two guys' 65 game rules for, quote, special circumstances. That is the definition of opening Pandora's box. And I don't think it's a good look for the NBA one bit whatsoever. RBC Heritage going on right now in Harbor Town, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Leader in the clubhouse, Matt Fitzpatrick, 8 under 63 today after 65 yesterday. Victor Hovland is in second. Ludwig Oberg, or as we like to refer to him on this program, Golf Lundgren, is also tied for second with Hovland. Patrick Cantlay. So the leader on the course, actually in the clubhouse now, the leader in the clubhouse for Mike versus Mac this way is Patrick Cantlay. T4 at -9. He shot a 64 today. Scotty Scheffler, T12. Right now he has hit 7 shots back. Current odds on Scotty Scheffler, don't say I didn't tell you. He is 13-1 to win the tournament as of right now, and that is per PGA Tour's official betting partner, FanDuel. 13-1 on Scotty Scheffler, 7 shots back. A course he's had great success on. Don't say I didn't tell you. How's the rest of Mike versus Mac look? I've got 2 and 3 right now with Scheffler at T12, Henley at T17. Mac's got Berger at T42 and Harmon at T42. TJ, signature event TJ, has Schauffele and Straka at T25 and Cameron Young at T53. TJ's theme this week, if you missed it on Wednesday, was guys who have never been in his kitchen. Laugh at TJ's themes, man. He's been pretty damn good when we've done this. So if anything pertinent there happens, I will pass it along. We have the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I want to give a big congratulations to the Los Angeles Kings. You made it to the postseason. You're not playing against the Edmonton Oilers. Hats off to you guys. Problem is you got to play the Colorado Avalanche. For the Edmonton Oilers, congratulations. You're going to spend the beginning of your playoff run back in Southern California, familiar to you, just in a slightly different location. That Edmonton-Anaheim series, I think, is going to be fascinating. Vegas and the Mammoth. Does the Tortorella experience continue for the Knights? I think it does. Dallas and Minnesota is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Can't wait to get that one going. I'll give the Kings maybe one game against the Avs, but that one's over quickly. Obviously, Buffalo and Boston, that's going to hit some nostalgia chords, and we've talked about it. I said it on the show the other day. I'd give up multiple body parts to be at the Anchor Bar this weekend before that first game. Multiple body parts just to be in that experience. The surround sound will be jacked to the gills when that puck gets dropped for that game. Montreal, Tampa, I think, is another good one. Carolina, Ottawa. T talked about that one kind of specifically yesterday. If Ottawa can get any semblance of goaltending, he thinks they have a shot to take down the Canes. Maybe part of that is because he knows it would make Mac upset if the Canes lost in the first round to Ottawa. But T is our resident puckhead. He thinks they got a shot. My upset pick is Montreal over Tampa there. The Philly-Pittsburgh series is incredibly fascinating, if you will, because we've got a situation there with those two teams that of all the series up there, everything that is up there, that's the one series I don't feel like anybody's really talking about unless you live in the state of Pennsylvania or you're a diehard Flyers fan or a diehard Penguins fan. Great to see Sidney Crosby and those guys back in the postseason. Ironic that it's against the Philly team that we had playoff expectations for, and they got the job done. That'll be your late game tomorrow night. That's your last of the 3 games that are on tomorrow night. Philly and Pittsburgh at 5. On ESPN, who's got all the games on Saturday. On Sunday, LA and Colorado, they'll drop the puck at noon for game 1. Montreal and Tampa at 2:45. These are West Coast times. Boston and Buffalo, 4:30 for us West Coasters. And Utah and Vegas will get their series going at 7 o'clock. The last 2 games, Boston, Buffalo, Utah, Vegas, are on ESPN. TNT's got the morning games of LA and Colorado, Montreal and Tampa. That is on Sunday. And then on Monday, the first game of... Whoops. Went way off freaking kilter there. There we go. Reading the wrong line. The first game of Vegas, or Edmonton and Anaheim, is on Monday, as well as game 2. Philly, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Carolina, Minnesota, Dallas. So 4 games on Monday there. We've also got games, obviously, all weekend in the NBA. Monday's schedule in the NBA has 3 games on it. Toronto, Cleveland, Atlanta, New York, Minnesota, Denver. Those are all game 2s. Peacock, NBC Peacock on Monday. Yes, we do have Amazon Prime in the NBA playoffs still. That'll be game 1s of Toronto, Cleveland, Minnesota, Denver, Atlanta, and the Knicks. Question that decision, why the Knicks got put on Prime Video, but who am I to make those decisions? And then we go back into Prime games on Thursday. So, again, the new TV package, it's kind of spread out as far as the NBA goes. Check your local listings, as they say. Check your guides. All that fun stuff. But primarily this weekend, you need Amazon Prime. You need ABC. You need NBC and Peacock to get through Saturday and Sunday. In the NBA, you need TNT and ESPN to get through Saturday, Sunday, and Monday in the NHL. I am very happy to report that if the Warriors do make it out of Phoenix tonight and get that series with Oklahoma City, mainly for my dad, that the first game of the series in Oklahoma City will be Sunday, 12:30 West Coast time on ABC, so I don't have to listen to his rant on Amazon Prime for that one at least. But it'll be interesting to see how it's received. Hopefully the technical difficulties stay away, because Amazon's still getting grilled for that. If you've been on X this week, you've seen every great moment in basketball history as if it was broadcast by Amazon Prime. So they're taking some shrapnel there, obviously. Mac and I were literally watching it live the other day. But hey, I think as a whole, Amazon Prime has been a welcome addition to NBA coverage with their studio show and some of their personalities there as well. So it's going to be a fun weekend. Again, I'm really just kind of targeting a couple here. We're going to cross some streams, if you will, as far as my stuff goes. I did say it earlier. I do like Montreal to knock off Tampa Bay, so I'm going to take them to win that series. I'm going to take Minnesota to beat Dallas. I'm going to take Denver to beat Minnesota. And I am going to take San Antonio to beat Portland in exactly 5 games. So we'll see if that's the leg, which it probably is, that ends up cutting me off there. But another thing, and I think we brought this up yesterday. If we didn't, I'm going to tell you here. Every day that we have a show, so next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we will have a play on our social channels, our hat trick play. So every day that there is playoff hockey, we're going to each pick a goal scorer. Some of these days, there might only be 2 games. Some days it could be 1 game. Obviously, harder to project the way we're doing it. But every day we're going to give you 3 goal scorers. $1 hat trick play. Again, the point is to have some fun. If you're watching a day's worth of games, get a couple of those legs in, let the thing roll over and roll down the hill all day, and then you got some added excitement, if you will. Freaking allergies are driving me up a freaking wall right now. I can't wait. And we talked about this the other day. I'm a basketball junkie. I'm going to be all over the NBA playoffs. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to be big screen, little screen priority. It's going to be little screen for the majority of the first round, because there isn't a whole lot that excites me there. Portland goes out and steals a game 1. Charlotte were to steal a game 1 in Detroit. It is what it is. I mean, that would obviously change some things, but let's get to the games tonight so we can finish the playoff field. And I mentioned Charlotte because they are first in action tonight at Orlando, where they are favored on the road against an Orlando team that I think is just days away from self implosion and destruction internally. Again, I am not the first person that said it, but I will say that we were in on this pretty early. This Magic team, all kinds of expectations, was made to sound like the acquisition of Desmond Bane was like picking up prime LeBron James this offseason. And Desmond Bane was fantastic for the Magic this year. He really was. But for that team to be 45-37 and sitting here facing elimination, it's you can't do that. That team in a down east Orlando, it was way more wide open for them this year, and they couldn't function in their own division. They only did finish a game behind Atlanta, but 45-37 was not the expectation for this team. Charlotte actually opened up as a 3.5 points or a 2.5 point spread. The spread is now at 3.5. There are some threes out there because I did some digging this morning because we had a show today and I wanted to give a couple of plays out. You can fade me, you can follow me, you can do whatever. Play them straight, play them together. That's up to you. But I really like this makeup of the Charlotte team. I think Charlotte has the potential to adhere to the 2-1-1 theory. Not saying I think they're going to beat Detroit. I'm not saying that. But if you look at this team with Knipple and Ball and Brandon Miller, they have a group there that could give you our superstar wins us 2 games, our second best player wins us a game, and then one of our role players wins us a game, because that you also got Miles Bridges. You also got Kobe White in there. Kobe White was one of those guys I was fascinated to see where he ended up at the trade deadline, because his game is so versatile. There's so many things that he can do. And, you're looking at just that 5 right there. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, Miles Bridges, and Kobe White. Just those guys alone. That's a tough out for somebody. Obviously, the other night, well, we were literally watching it almost simultaneously. Kobe White was the hero. I've seen this a couple times today. I had to check myself because I really wanted to do this. I know there's a lot of people laddering Kobe White's point totals. Recency bias is a thing. How did I play the game? I like Charlotte to cover the 3.5. I think clearly they're the better team. I think if this game gets close down the stretch, whether Charlotte's winning or losing, Charlotte's firepower and Orlando's impotence on defense, especially in the last 5 minutes of a game, I don't think Charlotte's out of this game one bit whatsoever tonight. So I like them on the road to cover the 3.5. I'm going to play Kobe White for 15 points tonight. Suns and Warriors, obviously the show that was put on by Steph Curry the other day. I've said this a bunch of times. I don't think that anybody truly appreciates what we've seen and what we've gotten to witness in Steph Curry's career. Call me a homer. I'm also a realist. It's the greatest shooter to ever step on a basketball floor. And what he did the other night, not even really being fully back, when you consider all the games that he missed, that was Steph Curry. Now you can continue to make the jokes. The Warriors are the only team that qualified for the, quote, postseason with a losing record at 37-45. And I'm going to have some more thoughts on the Warriors here in just a second. But when I'm looking at this game specifically, obviously you can go to the big headline on the marquee. And I mentioned this off the top. It's WrestleMania weekend. Kind of ironic that Dylan Brooks faces Steve Kerr, Draymond Green, and Stephen Curry in an elimination game with their history there. And oh, by the way, let's just add Scott Foster to the refereeing mix tonight for a little extra added drama. I've seen a lot of Warriors fans crying about this already because of Scott Foster. I don't know why. you would cry if you're a Warriors fan about Scott Foster. Can Scott Foster be really, really aggravating at times when he's reffing one of your games? Absolutely. Max said this a couple weeks ago. You're not supposed to know the names of these guys. The exception of maybe Billy Kennedy, because he's incredible on the mic explaining a reviewed call. Should just be the voice automatically for it for everybody. We got AI now, why not? But Scott Foster is also one of those guys that will let Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks talk, chirp at each other. I think tonight's game is going to be incredibly physical. Can Dillon Brooks keep his head against the Warriors? Can the Warriors keep their head against Dillon Brooks? It is part of the game, whether you want to admit it or not. Kristaps Porzingis, huge for the Warriors tonight. Huge. 3.5 points the Suns are favored by tonight, over under at 219.5. If you remember the last time these two teams played in Phoenix, the Warriors had a massive fourth quarter comeback, a la what they did to the Clippers the other night to steal a win in Phoenix. You know, I could see this game going either way. I think the huge advantage the Suns have is they knew that they were going to be home for 1 or 2 games, no matter what here. And they played on Tuesday night. They're going to be chomping at the bit to get out because they know they gave up that game to Portland. Golden State did win the regular season series for whatever that's worth, but keep in mind, we know that Jalen Green of the Suns missed quite a bit of time at the beginning of the year. So take for these what you will. 11-point win for Phoenix, or for Golden State in Phoenix in November. A 1-point win, or the game in November, was in San Francisco. The game in December, 1-point win for Phoenix was in Phoenix. Their third game, 119-116. The Warriors won at Golden State. And then the game I was just referring to about 2 months ago, 101-97, the Warriors with the comeback win there. I think Phoenix is at a huge advantage tonight, being at home. I think that you can't ask for a better setup for your final game of the play-in tournament that's been really good this year, probably one of the better ones. We've also never seen a 7 seed lose. The favorites in this particular game are 8-0 and 8-0 straight up and against the spread. So that would lead you, based on the history over the last 8 editions of these particular 2 games tonight, that the Hornets and the Suns would advance and would cover the spread. I think the Warriors give the Suns a little bit more of a battle than Orlando's going to give Charlotte. But I don't know if I'm going to pick a side in this game. I do believe in the history, and I think Phoenix has the edge. If it was worth it on the money line, I would probably bet Phoenix on the money line. But I'm going to target a couple of players in this game that I think are going to be in positions to have some success in these positions. Number one, I think the best story of the year for the Warriors, outside of getting rid of Jonathan Kuminga finally, was the emergence of Guy Santos. So I'm going to play Guy Santos tonight for 15 points. I think he has probably benefited the most from the Warriors situation this year. And he's a tough matchup. He's a lot of what the Warriors wanted Jonathan Kuminga to be. Just Kuminga had too many of the wrong people in his ear telling him he was better than he was. So I like Guy Santos for 15 points tonight. That is an alt line. And then one of my favorite bets to play, and this matchup kind of even dictates it a little bit more to me, Draymond Green to hit 2 threes. He's going to get left open. He hasn't had like a great shooting game in a little while here. He usually drops those in every now and then. He's probably, I would guess tonight, going to get 4 to 5 attempts. One of them will be stupid early in the game, because it usually is. First or second possession kind of stuff. Everybody's scrambling to find Steph, matching up wherever they need to match up. Draymond's left towards the end of the shot clock, usually at the top of the key. So Draymond for 2 threes, Guy Santos for 15 points, Kobe White for 15 points, and the Hornets to cover the spread. Again, I'm probably going to stay off of the side in the Warriors Suns game. Might live bet it, depending on how it looks mid third quarter and depending on who's up and who's not. But that'll get us to the completion of our NBA playoff field in full. 6-3 bottom 4 from Wrigley right now. It's been a little while. We haven't done it in a little while because we haven't had Friday show in a little while. So happy to be able to go back to this. And I said I had some other thoughts on the Warriors. I do. So in this week's mic drop, I give you the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors. The Miami Heat, who are obviously already out and have been eliminated from the playoffs, and I would assume that Golden State is about to be, if not tonight, within the next 2 weeks. These are two teams that I'd love to be behind the scenes with this entire offseason and through next season. Since we're doing that on Netflix and Prime and all these things now, I think these would be two fascinating off seasons to see. Remember when we make all the old, how many Cowboys fans does it take to change a light bulb joke? Remember the guy that always shows up to the parties in his Letterman's jacket and tells the war stories? That's only cool when you're Al Bundy and you've scored 4 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown for Polk High against Johnson High. But it's not for the most part. That's who the Heat and the Warriors are. These are two teams, between their coaches, their organizational philosophies, their rosters, which there is obviously a direct tie to the rosters, that really need to check themselves because, to quote a famous poet, they're wrecking themselves. The glory's gone. You should have saw it about 2 to 3 years ago. But here's what's going to happen. While both of these teams know that they need to redirect how they handle their franchises, both of these organizations are so proud in what they've been able to do, Heat culture and Dub Nation, and the Warriors have had a 2-timeline plan, which might be a 3-timeline plan, but I don't know if it got put to 4.5 timeline plan because Joe Lacob wanted to buy the Padres. These are two teams that know they need to rethink how they're doing things because you can only hold on to past glory for so long. 49ers fans are in that category as well, with the Cowboys fans and Lakers fans, and we can go through every sport and Maple Leafs fans and whatnot. These two teams specifically, the Warriors and the Heat, they know that they're in the spot that they're in, but I guarantee you one of them this offseason does not break the mold and stays in their same lane right now, trying to chase two of the now dulling infinity stones, if you will, that are out there. LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. One of these two teams is going to go all in and try and acquire, if there's a way to do it, 2 of those 3 guys, which might give you some immediate success in a year or 2, but doesn't do anything for your long-term future. One of these two teams this offseason is going to kick the can down the road on development for the future, yet again, and be in the same spot. And I think if you're a Warriors fan, you have every right to be upset with Mike Dunleavy Jr., the Steve Kerr contract situation. Spoelstra's a little more locked in, obviously. Kerr has no contract after tonight's elimination or 2 weeks from now when they get swept by the Thunder. If you're a Warriors fan, the best thing that could happen to you would be that Mike Dunleavy Jr. goes and gets a job with the Chicago Bulls to do what he's doing now for the Bulls. And somebody comes in that has the bread bowls of Bob Myers that can make a deal to avoid what will be and go down as one of the most hideous malpractice incidents in all of sports, that the Warriors are leaving Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr now hanging because they don't know what their direction is. Eventually, trophies collect dust. So do banners. And one of those two teams is going to look at those banners and go, man, we're a premier franchise. Neither one of them are right now. And one of them needs to figure that out. One of them's going to end up with the number one pick in 3 years after failed misery because they won't get out of their own way. They won't get out of their own heads. The offseason for the Golden State Warriors and the Miami Heat is of utmost paramount importance of all importance this year. Because you can't keep doing it the way you're doing it. Because in both teams' cases, barely making the play-in tournament doesn't do anything for what you did for me lately. Dust and cobwebs collect at the top of arenas and in trophy cases. You've got to figure it out. For everybody behind the scenes, from my guys TJ for Vegas Mac, I'm Mike. We're back with you on Tuesday. Enjoy WrestleMania weekend. Enjoy playoff weekend in the NBA and the Stanley Cup playoffs, which are second to none, and some great baseball matchups. Man, what a time to be alive. We will talk again with you. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. Until Tuesday night, you know the drill. Love this weekend. It's a good one. We're out.